Hey, what is going on, all my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? I'm Vance from the popular web series Warframe God Builds. Do not adjust your monitor, your smartphone, your TV, whatever you're watching me on. This video was uploaded once before, but I just gotta give thumbs up to YouTube for doing such a great job at removing the copyright content from the first attempt at this video, because you managed to silence like a whole minute of footage, and then the audio shifted and you had it like playing out of sync with the video. It's just wonderful. Like, that's some splendid technology you got there. Okay, so sarcasm aside, this is obviously the triple feature: Frost, Rhino, and Loki reforged. So I'm just gonna get right into it. I've already covered this before, but I'm gonna do it again, so just in case anybody didn't see the previous video, they got a chance to get up to date with what I'm doing now. So as we all know, the focus system is pretty much gone. It's not really used for warframes anymore. It's more focused around your Tenno. So with that being said, there's a lot of these builds that are gonna be automatically rendered obsolete because they're so power hungry, and that is the case for Rhino and Frost. With Frost, I'm gonna use Stand United, Handspring, Prime Flow, Intensify, Prime Continuity, Chilling Globe, Icy Avalanche, Stretch, Overextended, and Steel Fiber. The curious thing about this is the fact that I am actually combining the duration build that we did for the initial God builds and the power build from the ReForged. So because the power build for ReForged was so thirsty for energy and there was really no way to make it work without Xenuric, we've got to try to find a happy medium and get between these two builds and make something that works really, really well. Icy Avalanche is going to work similar to Iron's Rhino Charge. You cast the ability once, and anything that it hits, it's going to provide additional armor for Frost. So this is really, really helpful in late game, just specifically because you get extra armor on top of your already pretty cool armor rating of 630. Moving on to my weapons, I'm gonna start using lens. Preferably you want to shoot these guys before you freeze them, otherwise statuses don't stick. I don't know why that is. I have no clue. That's been a thing for the longest time in this game. Basically, once you freeze enemies with any ability, even if it's a Gara ability, enemies will not get procced by statuses. So the main concern is affecting them with your corrosive as much as you can while you can before you freeze them. Consider your ultimate to be your last ditch effort, something to just kind of bail you out of trouble. This is the build that I'm running for. It's Infected Clip, Stormbringer, Point Strike, Vital Sense, Split Chamber, Hammer Shot, Speed Trigger, Serration. So I'm basically just going for a little bit of crit and some status. Actually, a lot of bit of crit and some status, but who's really paying attention? Arcus Cisco is my secondary, mainly because it's just freaking amazing. It's a sniper pistol, and for the Plains of Eidolon specifically, you need more distance weapons. There's no getting around that. Like, the Plains calls for medium to long range engagements, and this thing's got it covered. Even in close range combats, I seem to be getting the upper hand every engagement I pull off. I'm using Barrel Diffusion, Prime Pistol Gambit, Jolt, Pistol Pestilence, Hornet Strike, Lethal Torrent, Prime Target Cracker, and Scorch. Same thing. Same essential thought processes going into this gun as was our primary. To put a little bit of crit in there, some status, mix that flavor up, and get yourself some nice kills. Indra is about the only old weapon I'm using, primarily because I just can't really find anything that goes well with Frost. There's not a lot of weapons that do any good after the enemy has already been frozen, but at least with this, it's a good candidate to replace like Broken War or Desestra. So if you're a fan of those weapons, then you're gonna love this. I'm using Vulpine Mask, Virulent Scourge, Relentless Combination, Prime Fury, Condition Overload, Vicious Frost, Healing Return, Prime Pressure Point, and Drifting Contact. If you know anything about Condition Overload, and then you know something about Drifting Contact, you know that those mods are kind of OP, and it does make Enduro super powerful. As long as enemies aren't frozen, you're going to be affecting them with status, a little bit of it anyways, and once you affect them with status, that healing return is going to kick in, and this is essentially going to be the only thing that gives Frost his health back other than the Sentinel that we use, which is Helios Prime. I'm using Investigator, Animal Instinct, Metal Fiber, Sanctuary, Detect Vulnerability, Vacuum, Meta-Ray, Enhanced Vitality, Calculated Redirection, and Prime Regen. By now, you probably are familiar with the main staples of each Sentinel build. You gotta have your Animal Instinct, you gotta have your Meta-Ray, stuff to make it tankier, make it take a bit of a more beating. Sanctuary is helpful, so's Detect Vulnerability. Point out those weak points and aim for them with the Arca Cisco, you just can't go wrong. I'm using a Sweeper Prime on this bad baby, and I'm going to consistently use this Sentinel for both Rhino and Loki. Sentinels are the one exception to my whole different weapons per different loadouts rule. I can use whatever Sentinel I want essentially. So here I lucked out and I got a Sweeper Ribbon, I got Hell's Chamber, Vicious Spread, Shell Shock, Charge Shell, Toxic Barrage, Contagious Spread, and Prime Point Blank. And that pretty much seals the deal for my Frost build. Moving on to my Rhino build, things get a little bit different. Things definitely get different with him. I wasn't about to put in another Forma, chalking it up to 8 Forma, and you don't have to either. If you've followed the God Build series long enough and you know that Rhino has had many different iterations throughout. I mean, he's had 2 updates, a core initial video. He's been covered a lot more than any other frame has. Stand United once again, just because that armor rating, it's really tough on Rhino. Rush, because I can't stand him going slow, even with an arcane speed up helmet. Old school helmet. Let me tell you what, you can't get these things anymore. Even with all that, I still feel as though he's still too sluggish. So Rush is important for me personally. You don't have to use it. You can swap it out for anything you want as long as you know, you're aware of what polarity you put there, because I put a dash there. It may have started out with that. I can't recall. Been a long time since I updated this build. So I've got Ironclad Charge. That's the biggest thing that's changed here, is that we don't have as much power strength as we did with the ReForged video. So you're going to have to be aware of that and know that it's not going to work nearly as well. This is more of a duration mixed with power, just like the Frost. So you do your Ironclad Charge before you put up your Iron Skin, and what this is going to do is, it says it increases Rhino's armor rating by 50% for 10 seconds. Well, it does increase this armor rating for 10 seconds, but what will actually happen is once you hit a bunch of enemies with your Ironclad Charge, basically when you do your Iron Skin, it carries over that buff to your Iron Skin, but it lets it stick indefinitely. We've tested this and tested this and tested this and concluded that this is definitely essential, and it makes Rhino easily late game worthy. For primaries, I'm gonna roll with Tenora, because why not? It's pretty much a Soma Prime replacer, and we all know how much people love Soma Prime. So Serration, Split Chamber, Hammer Shot, Vital Sense, Thermite Rounds, Malignant Force, High Voltage, Vile Acceleration to get that spin going. Now for secondaries, I'm using Pandero, and you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, he's using full Octavia weapons. Not quite, the melee's different. But otherwise, yeah, secondary and melee are just genius on Rhino. Again, I lucked out with a Riven here, Pandero. I got for fire damage, I got core damage and fire rate, which is all helpful to Pandero, of course. Barrel Diffusion, Prime Pistol Gambit, Pistol Pestilence, Lethal Torrent, Hornet Strike, Prime Target Cracker, and Convulsion make up one badass mumbo jumbo for the secondary. I mean, this is really powerful. It beats out Lex Prime, and dare I say, easily. Now, for melees, I'm using Galatine Prime. I don't think that this has changed at all, actually. Pretty sure I was using Galatine Prime in the last update that we did, so nothing's changed here. Temple Royale, Prime Pressure Point, Prime Fury, Life Strike, Blood Rush, Body Count, Organ Shatter, Berserker, and Buzzkill. And that concludes Rhino. So off to the last but not least, Loki Prime. Last time you see me using him, I was using like a cost assist and who knows what else. But I built him primarily for Plains of Eidolon this time around. I'm not sure. I don't think anything's changed with the initial build. I've got Energy Siphon, Speed Drift, Vitality, Streamline, Constitution, Flow, Irradiating Disarm, Stretch, Overextended, and Prime Continuity. Pretty sure that's all the same, but all of my weapons have changed for him. I'm now using Rubiko with a lucked out ribbon mod that does fire rate, damage, and punch through. All things that are helpful for Rubiko. Split Chamber, Serration, Point Strike, Stormbringer, Infected Clip, Bladed Rounds, and Prime Fast Hands. I just hate that reload speed, so this is an absolute must, and I usually try to avoid that if I can, but it's an absolute must with Rubiko, in my opinion. The reason why I'm using Zocti here is actually because this thing opens enemies up to finishers, although I will say that it has been bugged for the longest time, and it's not actually letting me use my finishers. I will see them go into the animation and stagger like they're open to the finishers, and then when I go to do the finisher, I just poke them with my dagger. So it's very awkward, but and I guess it doesn't really matter how you build for that, because the reason why we're using this is just to open them up to finishers, nothing more. So you don't have to mod it this way. However, if you do mod it this way, it's going to do a lot of damage. Not in-game viable. I would not recommend bringing this by itself. I would definitely use this in tangent with a good melee, which is why I've chose to run with the Rack to Dark Dagger. Why else? Because covert lethality. Everybody knows that if you do a finisher on someone who's stunned with covert lethality and a Dark Dagger, you're pretty much one-shotting them. I mean, there was at one point videos of someone one-shotting a Juggernaut Behemoth. So that just goes to show you that this type of combination is nothing to fuck with. You use the Zocti in one hand to, you know, open them up to finishers, then run straight up to them, do the finisher, and it's all over but the crying. Essentially, my battle tactic with Loki here is to remain invisible at all times, of course, but in the heat of battle, especially when I'm closer to the enemy than I want to be, I'll probably cast an Irradiating Disarm to get some of them to focus on each other, but in the midst of battle, I'll fire my Zocti off at somebody and then run up to stab them with the Rock to Dark Dagger, and it just works wonders. Otherwise, I'm completely out of the scene altogether and sniping from a distance with the Rubiko. There's just something so satisfying about that sniper. I feel like you've got to be an actual Looney Tune to not like Rubiko at this point, because it's probably the best sniper in the game. I know that it does really good damage comparatively to Lanka. Not quite sure if it beats it out, so I'm not going to tell you that it does. So you won't be able to quote me on that one, but it is definitely a high damaging sniper in the game. And with the Plains of Eidolon being, you know, fresh off the delivery, we've got essentially 3 long-range weapons to count upon: Rubiko, Opticore, and Lanka. So there's not a lot of selection there. Other weapons just fall off too quick. They're not a match at all. I mean, I'm not gonna knock all the other weapons that are good at doing what they're good at doing. I'm sure that Volcar Wraith can handle a lot of the stuff that I throw at it at Plains of Eidolon, but I'm just not going to chance it because I know for a fact that Rubico, Opticore, and your Lanka are all top tier. I know that they're unrivaled. So that pretty much concludes all the different builds that I'm using now. They are subject to change because we have no idea how far and wide the Plains of Eidolon is going to change. The meta could completely get flipped over on its head overnight. Who knows? So if you like this video and you learned something from it, it always helps if you smash that like button. Do as I always encourage you to do. Share, comment, subscribe, everything. And until next time, this has been Vance, signing out. Peace.